Oh, welcome. So glad you could join me. My name is Bob Kirwan. I'm the true Sport Community Animator for Northern Ontario, and I'm pleased to be able to bring you a very special four-part interview with one of my good friends, Jim McLoughlin. Jim McLoughlin is the founder of the Valley East Renegades Athletic Association. Jim started this club about 30 some years ago, I think almost 40 years now, and over that period of time the Renegades have had such a huge impact on sport, not only in Valley East but in the entire greater Sudbury area. During the four-part interview that you're going to listen to, Jim and I talked for about an hour, or if not a little bit longer, and we covered all kinds of topics, right from the early beginnings of the Renegades and what the Renegades' basic principles are. And one of the things that really stood out during the entire program with Jim was this whole issue of fair play. And you're going to hear Jim talk an awful lot about many of the principles that true sport has been trying to promote across the country as our nation's sport movement to try and produce the kind of sport that Canadians want. We know that many people in Canada feel that sport can have a huge impact on youth and in fact on the quality of life of the entire community. And so you're going to hear when Jim is talking about what has been driving the Renegades, you're going to hear an awful lot of the principles and values, such as fair play, having fun, making sure that people are playing on an even field as far as competition is concerned. And Jim's going to talk an awful lot about giving back to the community. I think you're going to find that the Renegades Athletic Association is in fact one of those associations that everybody can model. And I know you're in for a real treat tonight. If you've never met Jim before, you're going to find him to be a man that has an awful lot of great goodness just coming from. And so enjoy the show. It's a four-part show. It does take the better part of an hour, but I can assure you that if you can listen to the entire show, and especially if you like hockey, if you are very concerned about the state of hockey today, you're going to enjoy what Jim and I have to say, because when Jim and I get together, virtually there's no topic that is off limits. And I hope that as you listen to what Jim McLoughlin has to say, and as you are privy to what the Renegades are trying to do for their community, that hopefully you will go back to whatever organization or whatever sport group that you're part of, and perhaps it will give you a little bit of direction and a little bit of insight into perhaps some of the things that you can do back in your own neck of the woods. So once again, my name is Bob Kirwan. I am the True Sport Community Animator for Northern Ontario, and I'm interviewing today Jim McLoughlin, the founder of the Renegades Athletic Association of Valley East. So we're here this afternoon with Jim McLoughlin. Jim, you are officially what, the founder or the president, the director?
Well, we don't have any no namesakes. Like, we don't have any namesakes, but basically the Renegades started 33 years ago with myself and three other fellows who are no longer involved. But we just sat down. We were all coaching. We sat in one guy's kitchen one day, had a couple of beers, and said, "Let's run a tournament and let's put some goals out there." And one of our main goals was to run a tournament that was that we envisioned down the road to be one of the biggest and the best tournament. In other words, we wanted a tournament that people would be knocking on our door to come for instead of us looking for them. We wanted the repeat business.
And it was a house league tournament you were doing?
Strictly a house league tournament.
Any particular reason why you went with house league as opposed to the traveling teams?
The traveling teams are way more serious than the house league. Even today, they are still more serious. The kids aren't serious. The parents are a little bit more serious. Kids have, you know what? The funny thing is, some of these kids who are now in their 30s or early 40s that I've seen back then, they had the same dreams as their own kids, as I did as a kid growing up. You put a pair of skates on, you want to be in the NHL. Whatever team is your favorite, that's who you want to play for. Those dreams never die, no matter how much, no matter if it's rep hockey or house league hockey. And we chose to go to the house league side because there was more opportunities, there was more teams available, put that way. And not saying there's not enough teams out in rep, but it's very much more serious than house league. House league, we can do a lot of things in house league tournaments that you probably wouldn't even chance in rep hockey.
Yeah, the interesting thing, I can remember, because I was involved in hockey in the Valley, in your area, when I think you started. I had to be.
You were.
In the 80s, so I was there. And most of my experience at hockey was in the traveling teams with the NOHA.
Yeah. And I was involved there too myself.
Yeah, you were involved there.
Yeah.
And I can recall that house league hockey was a whole lot different than house league hockey is today.
Yes, it is.
There was something that happened within the last 30 years where house league hockey now is almost playing the same number of games as the traveling teams, and they're almost going to the same number of tournaments. Like have you noticed?
Yes.
The transition? Like, any explanation as to why we went from this house league being for kids who just want to play hockey for the fun of it to all of a sudden now you've got a program?
Mm-hmm. I think what happens there is you get some. I'll say one thing. Today we have, and not that there was ever a time where we didn't, but we have excellent coaching now. Some of the kids who I coached are now coaching their own kids, and these guys played a lot of rep hockey. They're coaching house league, and it's still a minority. But some of these guys, they will go to a lot of tournaments in a year because they enjoyed that as a kid. They enjoyed the experience, and they want to pass that on to the kids who they are coaching now, whether it be house league. And I'm just talking house league. You get other coaches who are, and I think usually it's the parents. The parents will dictate. It's very expensive to go to a tournament now. Like, really, costs have not gone up that much. Like, wages have gone up, everything's gone up. But really, the cost of your son to actually play the game of hockey has not relatively gone up that much. But everything around it, like a hockey stick now, might be $200. A hotel might be $100 a night. Your meals for a family of 4 might be $100 a day. We're back, when we were, whether it was rep, we might have got all that for $30 a day.
It didn't quite break your heart when you saw your kid break a hockey stick.
No, exactly. There was 2 or 3 in the trunk ready to come out. Now it's not like that.
One of the things that this True Sport movement has identified is that the cost of playing competitive sports is driving a lot of kids out. And I've always said, I kind of take your position that the cost of playing, the cost of registration, the cost of possibly even ice time, is not that much more expensive, relatively speaking, than it was 30 years ago, 30, 40 years ago.
You're absolutely right.
But yeah, when you're going to a tournament now, you're talking about a family going to watch one child play in a tournament.
Yes.
It could cost you $1,000 to go to town.
Easy, $1,000.
Plus the time.
Plus the time, yeah.
For one kid.
Yeah.
So you bring your whole family for one kid.
And the beauty about that is that and it's great, the parents still enjoy doing that. It's a mini vacation. I remember my sister telling me, like, she'd follow her kids, and she said that's my mini vacations in the, and I'm sure people today are doing the same thing. It's a little mini vacation. You get to watch your son play hockey. And I think you used to see this too. I remember talking to kids in the dressing room, and we'd be there on a Saturday night or a Saturday afternoon, and if the team you were coaching had lost that game, we'd all pack up and go home, right? And if you figure that over 15 kids on a team, the team would have actually saved maybe, let's say back in our day, maybe $3,000 by them losing that one game and going home, and the parents were all happy as if they all put in their pocket, let's throw $3,000, let these kids win. Yeah. It had nothing to do, it never was anything about the money back then. I don't think so much now. Once you go to a tournament, you're committed to the tournament. And the parents don't mind spending to get to see their kids at the tournaments.
Yeah. There's a natural part of where we are.
Exactly.
Yeah. Phone ringing in the background. Yeah. This is Jim McLoughlin's living room.
Yeah. When the answer machine comes on.
The answer machine comes on. So when you take a look at one of the challenges that we have in keeping young kids in sport, the cost has to be a factor. But interestingly enough, there's a benefit that comes from that togetherness, that camaraderie, that feeling like you belong to something that's bigger than you, and even the fact that tournaments do in some cases bring a family closer together. So I think this is the dilemma behind sport, because when you take a look at Canadians and you ask any Canadian, most people will say that, oh yes, sport has a lot of potential. Sport can really do an awful lot of good for the development of youth.
Yeah.
But the surveys that we've done through True Sport indicate that while 90% of the people in Canada feel that sport can do a lot of good, less than 20% of the people think that sport is actually living up to its potential. So it's the gap is really wide. One of the things that I'm trying to do by getting out talking to people like you that are part of organizations, and we're going to get into this right now, but when you take a look at the Renegades don't just organize competitive tournaments. The Renegades are actually giving an awful lot back to the community.
Yes.
And to the people who are participating.
Yes.
The fact that you've stuck with House League, for the most part, in hockey, indicates that you're trying to provide an experience to kids that, may have been overlooked in the past. Everything is for the traveling team, for the elite.
Yeah.
The House League kids don't really get the benefit, and yet the Renegades put on a first-class tournament, lots of prizes.
Yeah.
The kids really feel good.
Yeah.
It's a culminating event in the year. So, what's causing the gap? Why are so few people in Canada thinking that sport's living up to its potential, when so many people in Canada think that sport could do and should do so much?
I think it depends on what people call potential, and like yourself, we've had a good look at kids who have played hockey and where they are today. And if you look at a boy that played, let's say in his 30s now, and let's say 20 years. Unfortunately, a lot of these kids that play a sport, they get judged by just playing a sport. If they're a good hockey player, it seems like the parents always gravitate towards them because they are such a good hockey player. And if they're not, if they're one of the weaker players, well, it's almost like they get stereotyped, and the parents on the team don't sort of gravitate to him. But when you look at the overall picture, when you've been there a long enough time, if you look at these kids today, they've all played on team sports, whether it be hockey, baseball, soccer. Look at what they've learned by playing on a team sport. These kids are, so you see kids out there, they're engineers, they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're truck drivers. They are contributing in life. Hockey or baseball or whatever sport they played in was not their forte. But being part of a team atmosphere and having to deal with discipline, and you make a mistake. And I think that's always what the parents don't see, because all they see is in today's time of their child. We both get to see the overview from, and we see it in our own kids. We see it in their friends. How many kids today in their 30s, they're still friends with the kids they first started playing hockey with or soccer. That's the beauty about the sport.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes if you watch rep hockey, watch rep parents, and it's a minority. This is never a majority. Rep parents still today are no different than what they were 30 years ago. They still think their son is going to be on TV on a Saturday night. House League parents, what I find now, what's the beauty of it is, they're out there because it's a recreational sport, and no more, no less. They want to make sure their son, if they get an hour of hockey a week, they want to see him on the ice for an hour. They don't want to see him being sat out in the second period because somebody decides they need a goal, and then the kid feels terrible, and then all of a sudden, what happens to that boy when he grows up if somebody keeps doing that to him? And I think more today, it's more and more important now that we start putting kids in the same caliber as their ability. There's nothing worse than a boy never touching the puck in a game. They might win every game, but if that boy doesn't touch the puck during the whole game, his confidence is going to be could be shattered. But if he plays on a team of all his caliber, he will get to touch the puck, and his confidence will improve. And it's like anything else we do, and and that to me, I find hockey has really improved there, where the parents, for the most part, the parents now are looking at it as a recreational sport that you take your son to once or twice a week, and when he comes back from that experience, he enjoyed it and he looks forward to the next one. That's changed.
I mean, you've touched on a number of the principles that True Sport has emphasized or identified as core. This idea of playing fair.
Mm-hmm.
And having fair competition.
Yep.
This trying to find your level and playing against that level. The idea of having fun.
Yep.
is still it's part of what
it's the mainstay of any
sport's all
sport. If it's not fun, it's, you know, if a boy doesn't look forward to going to his game every week, and I can remember instances where parents would come up and say, my son's not having any fun or whatever, and I'd always say, well, maybe it's you that's not having any fun. But when I spoke to the kids, you know, and I remember one time speaking to a boy, and I asked him, I said, did you go to school today? And he said, yeah. I said, what did you think about all day? He said, I thought about this game tonight. And I said, perfect. You know, you're playing great. That's all that mattered to me. Yeah. All that mattered. Because that's how I used to love hockey. I mean, I haven't played it in 10 years, but even when I played old timers, I'm not a good hockey player, I never was, but when I went to work that day, I could hardly wait till 10 o'clock that night that I could go out and play with the boys. And when I was a kid growing up playing sports, baseball or hockey, I looked forward. That's all I thought about all day, and I'm sure every kid has the same aspirations that I did. Just look forward.
Yeah. And
when that's taken away from the child, yeah, you're asking for trouble, as far as I'm concerned.
I think too, at the house league level, you get into this area where everybody's welcome. Like there is an awful lot of inclusion in a house league system, whereas, and again, I've been in the rep system, and when you get down to those the last 5 players on your team, I mean, there's not much difference between the last 5 that get cut and the last 5 that get kept. And I think when you're taking a look at fairness, one of the maybe the misconceptions that comes out in terms of the fairness and the politics in hockey or any sport where you've got a selection process is that there's something behind the cuts. Yeah. There's something political involved. Like
sometimes that happens, absolutely right. Somebody comes in there with a $10,000 sponsorship. Well,
you're going to make the team, or an assistant coach. And I think what I'm seeing is that yes, there's a huge gap between the sport that Canadians want and the sport they're getting as far as what the surveys are that we're looking at. But when you take a look at the overwhelming number of people that are behaving and enjoying the sport, why, whether it's hockey or whether it's basketball, maybe basketball and soccer, and so they don't get the bad rep. Maybe it's because hockey is such a big attention grabber.
It is
in Canada.
Where soccer probably outnumbers hockey players in this country, probably 8-1 maybe, you know, but you don't hear any outcries in soccer.
Is it because we don't know enough about soccer as
I would
parents?
say so. I was looking, I said, geez, if I ever had to coach soccer, let's say, I'm not talking about the little kids where he's playing a small field, and I was born in Ireland where it's a soccer country, you know what I mean? And if I had to ever coach soccer, I would not know a strategy, I would not, and if I went and took a course, would not make me a coach either. I would need somebody on that team. I would know how to motivate the kids, but I would not know strategies, where a halfback plays, where this guy plays. I would need people on with me that would know the strategies of the game. And I think sometimes in hockey, and I don't believe that happens that often, I believe for the most part we do get excellent coaching in hockey. We really, really do. But I think it's because it's our national sport, and we watch it on TV all the time, and we see the millions of dollars that these hockey players make, and you're still going to get these parents that think that's going to be my son on that TV one day, and it's you know what, the kids are kids, you know, kids don't hear that, they don't see that, and at the end of the day, when these kids, you know, there's a long time between 8 years old and 20, and these kids, they all of a sudden they're 17, 18, they find something else that they enjoy. It might be photography, it could be anything else except hockey. It's not your forte, it's not your forte, it's not your gift.
I agree. So if we take a look at the perception of sport and the image of sport, and we look at all the benefits that come from sport, where do we go moving forward in terms of an organization like the Renegades? Like, what are the things that you're trying to accomplish with the Renegades organization? Besides the tournament is big, but what are you hoping to get across to the participants and the parents?
Two words and two words only. And I'm involved on the minor hockey board in Valley East. I've been on that board. This is my second time around. I was on there 15 years ago. We have a great board. And we also have board members on our Valley's minor hockey board. that are on the Renegades, and 2 words: fair play.
Fair play.